Hi, I'm Domenico the Clario. I'm in my backyard in Mildura, my back garden, on a beautiful spring afternoon. And I'm going to read you the 7th stanza of this prose poem I've been reading to you the last few days. It's the last stanza and it's the 6th reading. The poem describes a walk from Fremantle's railway station to the town of Calabarin in the goldfields in 2003. This is a walk I undertook to commemorate the walk a fellow passenger of mine named Biagio had intended to make from Fremantle to Melbourne. He never completed it, and I undertook the walk in his honour. I had intended to complete the walk for him all the way to Melbourne, but of course that didn't happen. I ran out of time and of opportunity, but I walked to Calabarin, and this is the account of that last section of the walk, the 7th stanza of Breathing to Biagio Walking. As I drive home back to Mount Lawley, what do I think about? I think about the artichokes my father had prepared for me in Melbourne. As I was about to once more leave for Perth a few days ago, he hands me a plastic container with 4 artichokes and insists I take them back with me for the walk, he says. I had explained to both he and my mother what I was about to undertake, and after handing me the container, he adds, Biagio must have loved artichokes. Thanks to my father's super efficient packaging, they once again miraculously managed to evade the cheerful police sniffer dogs at Perth Airport. I have waited nervously for the rest of my baggage quite a few times while tightly holding my carry-on backpack containing the lovingly prepared artichokes, hoping if I hold it tight enough against me, my body scent might somehow confuse the dogs and camouflage the fragrance of the contents. Almost as soon as I see my bag moving towards me on the carousel, it's in my hand, and I walk as rapidly as I can to the exit, grinning broadly at this minor triumph. Every week during artichoke season, my father has sent me a plastic container in the overnight mail packed full with the dark green artichoke hearts and leaves. He gets up at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning, cooks the artichokes, and he's at the Dramana post office by 5 minutes to 9. He confides to the woman behind the counter that today he's again sending more books to his son in Perth. Priority paid, please. She approves of this with a benign smile, he says, and adds that she considers us a very literate family. As I eat them alone each Tuesday evening in my kitchen in Mount Lawley, I think of each leaf as the page of a book. And when I scrape the page with my teeth, I read the sounds and smells that manifest from the myriad grooves as if they were a long-playing disc gifted with the extra dimension of centeredness. Then hearing and smelling that leaf page transports me immediately to another kitchen 3,000 kilometers away across the continent, and I see my father bent over the stove. I even see the paulownia tree through the kitchen window above the sink, dropping its white blossoms as the early morning sea breeze comes up from Safety Bay and firmly moves each growing plant. It's cold early the next day, much colder than I'd imagined it could be. The walking is slow and painful, and Biagio is not on my numbed mind. I forget the ski poles in the car, and an hour later I wonder what I'm doing here at 6:30 a.m. in the morning, walking alongside a busy road filled with early transport arrivals from the east with not an artichoke in any of them. But I get far this day, much further than I thought I would, simply through steady walking. In the end, absolutely everything hurts, and when my friend arrives to drive me back to my car, I can hardly stand. I resolve to buy today a proper pair of walking boots on the way back to Perth. Later in my office, I daydream of walking. When I lie down that night, I can hardly sleep because of the tightness in my legs, but somehow I begin to feel more optimistic and purposeful about what I've undertaken. I have begun to breathe more slowly during the walk. I'm up again at 4:30 and I start walking by 5:45 a.m. and now, for the first time, I feel I'm breathing for him. Finally, for Biagio. My new boots are fantastic. I wear the bushwalking socks Mark left for me, and today I suddenly feel like I can walk forever. I managed to finish just beyond York at the start of the Goldfields road that heads towards Tamman. During the afternoon back at work, my steps are light, and the soreness I felt in my legs during the last few weeks has suddenly disappeared. I can't believe I've walked 75 kilometers in 3 days. It's not that much, I suppose, but it's where it's taken me. It's taken me to York. York as another town, separate from Perth. York as another separate planet in the galaxy. I begin to look around me more as I walk and even manage to take a photo or two. I'm so eager to start the next day's walking, and now I get a glimmer of why Mark found it so hard to stop after 6 weeks on the road. I call him on my mobile and leave him an ecstatic phone message trying to explain how it feels to me to be suddenly liberated from the idea of distance as disempowering. Though I don't understand anything of what I see, I suddenly realize, perhaps very slowly, that it can be walked. It can be covered. Any distance can be covered. Time is the key here, and the need for everything to happen quickly, if not immediately, limits our understanding of what's possible. Then I start singing, and it's amazing how all the words to the songs flood back. Where have all those words been? Today I remembered the ski poles, and they're a godsend. They balance me and work my arms in unison with my legs. Then a thought appears, at first tiny, then momentous. What if Biagio died of ecstasy? What if he had started the walk to Melbourne filled with terror and melancholy, and then ended it in bliss in Kalgoorlie because he'd seen enough to know everything he might be capable of knowing in his life, everything he was capable of containing. I end this day about 27 kilometres further on from where I finished yesterday, after walking up and down hills, along plains and around bends. The Goldfields Road is much quieter than the Great Eastern Highway. There is no signage that tells me how far I am from anywhere. And so I just keep walking until the car that will take me back to the day's starting point appears behind me. I could keep walking. I joyfully realize I could actually happily keep walking indefinitely, and I'm almost disappointed when I hear tooting behind me. The drive back to where I'd left my car seems endless, and I can somehow remember each single tree, each fence post, each haystack, as we glide by noiselessly. I walk on the afternoon of the 5th day, and the heat emanating from the road and the fields is overwhelming. It slowly abates as the light changes imperceptibly over the stillness of everything. I begin to know I don't want the walk to end, because each day has been melting away a little of what I've been carrying. So I get lighter. But what was the original burden? What did it consist of? I'm within 50 kilometres of Calabarin, and tomorrow night I will sleep there. I will open Biagio's suitcase when I arrive inside the Aurora on Sunday, and I will leave it open on the floor. I've carried the blindfold in it in a bed of dry West Australian grasses I ripped up from the side of the road in Guildford. One evening I came to a halt suddenly as I was driving. I still don't know why I stopped at that particular moment. I put on my indicator, yelling to passing motorists to drive by me. I leapt out of the car and ripped out the yellowing grass lying like waves of matted hair by the railway tracks. I stuffed it all in the suitcase and placed the blindfold in it. What a lovely nest, I concluded. What a lovely nest for Biagio's blindfold. One thought I did have in the last few days of that walk, a reappearing thought, you could say, a thought I can and will hold on to, and it's this: utter astonishment at how privileged we are to be able to reflect upon such seemingly ephemeral realities, seemingly inconsequential memories of each of our temporary selves as they birth and vanish. When the business of the body's living and dying is going on all around us, how fortunate we are to be able to consider all kinds of questions beyond the simple and pure necessity to stay alive. I know it's not much, but it's something. On the night of November 9, as the moon rose high over the wheat fields outside the aurora, I felt our silent and invisible companions joining us once more in this strangely wondrous place to celebrate all of our seemingly inconsequential ephemeralities. They did so very briefly, just long enough to simply reaffirm once more what we have always known. Tomorrow I'll read you a preamble to Walking Slowly Downhill as a kind of bardo space between the description of the two walks, this one and Walking Slowly Downhill. And I'll explain a little of the conditions under which I walked as I was working at Edith Cowan University each day. So I would drive back and forth between the end of the walk and Perth each day. But I'll explain that better tomorrow. I hope today's reading gave you something interesting. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for listening.